Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Franny and I'm one half of the Insights of Readers. Today I'm here to do what is essentially quite a late April wrap up. I can't remember what month we are because we are halfway through May now. I liked the books I read. They were all more or less 4 stars or higher. They were like 2, 3.5 stars maybe. But I generally liked what I read, and so I don't quite know why I just don't feel like wrapping them up. Maybe I don't think I'm slumpy, but you know, maybe I am. Anyway, I posted my April TBR, which I will link down below, and I had a book for every prompt, and I did change a couple of those prompts, but I didn't finish them all. I did finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 books, so most of them. I didn't finish a book for Care of Magical Creatures. I didn't finish one for Divination or for Defense Against the Dark Arts. So let's just go through. If you can tell me what career you think I should do, because at the moment I've gone for Broom Maker, which definitely wasn't where I thought I was going to go, but it's the one I can do that I am most interested in. So I may have another look later and change that, but who knows. So I'm going to do it in order of the subjects rather than the order I read them. And the first one I'm going to talk about is for Ancient Runes, which was to read something with a heart on the cover or in the title. And I have chosen How Hard Can Love Be by Holly Vaughan. This is the second book in the Spencer Club series, and it's about Amber, who goes to America to see her mum, who has in essence abandoned her in England with her dad and her stepmother, who is obviously evil because stepmothers always are. I've been putting off reading this for so long, and I don't know why, because it was so good. I really enjoyed it. Amber was such a good character. She's like what I wish I could be. So ginger, English, feminist, but louder and has better opinions and stuff. She was a really fun character. My heart broke whenever she interacted with her mum. I was so happy to see her interact with the Spencer Club, and the feminism in this was really interesting. It's not just all about grand gestures and like saving the world from a rapey pop song or a pervy law. It's sometimes just about being friends or falling in love, and I just thought it was really interesting. I was so glad there was a happy ending of sorts, and every time I pick up a Holly Vaughan book I feel like I learn something new. And to be 22 and learning something new about feminism is great, but that just shows you what good it will do for younger girls. I rated this one 5 stars. I also have my Hufflepuff cushion here, and like my Luna Lovegood sparkly top is like one of my favourite tops, and because I was doing a Harry Potter video it seemed relevant, and my sparkly top is very relevant to my next book, which is also sparkly. That is Meat Market by Juno Dawson, which is for arithmancy, which was to read a book outside your comfort zone. So this is like a young adult contemporary, and I feel silly saying this is outside of my comfort zone, seeing as How Hard Can Love Be is also a young adult contemporary, but this is kind of like one of those hard-hitting, revelatory, is that a word, books about the modelling industry. So the main character, Jana, is scouted at a theme park during the summer, and her world kind of explodes from there. She suddenly gets snapped up as one of the new upcoming really popular faces in modelling, and by doing that she obviously loses touch with a lot of her friends and her family, and gets to see the dark and dank side of what usually seems like quite a glamorous industry. This book has a lot of content warnings. I will list them all down below, but it includes sexual assault, transphobia, drug abuse, eating disorders, addiction, drinking, many sorts of nasty things that you kind of don't think about, but well, you don't see, but you know is behind the scenes of the modelling industry. And whilst it's hard to say I enjoyed it, because obviously it's a very hard-hitting, not very pleasantly topicked book, it was a very interesting book, and really thought-provoking and really poignant. I know it's going to stay with me for a while, and I have written a blog post which I will also link down below, which definitely doesn't capture my thoughts or feelings about it, but it was really, really good. The feminism in it was really interesting, because obviously being a model is just all about being seen, not about being heard, and Jana takes that and decides she'd rather be heard, so uses her platform to talk about stuff, to reveal things that aren't good. She tries to make a change in the world, and it's really interesting that she gives up what could just set her for life by giving her loads of money, and chooses to save other people and save other people in the future by using her voice instead. It also like really challenged my expectations, and I don't know if this is because it wasn't mentioned or to make a point, or because I'm not very good at picturing people in my head, but the like biggest model in the world is someone called Clara Keys, and I just didn't think about her, or I didn't think about what she looked like, because I just can't picture people. But at one point, about 2/3, 3/4 of the way through, it's mentioned that she's black, and I was suddenly like, whoa, where did this come from? And I don't know if that's like my white bias or because of what I've seen, but I just wrongly imagined the most well-known supermodel in the world would be white, and I thought that was just really interesting. So I have rated this one 5 stars. The next subject I finished was astronomy, and for that I read Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls by someone. And I listened to this as an audiobook, and it was just so good as an audiobook, because it had 4 or something narrators that were like famous women reading it, and they sent me to sleep because I did just listen to like half an hour before I went to bed, but then I would go back through in the morning and like make a note of my favourites and just look over the pictures, because I've been scrolling through, but you can't see, but like the pictures are super interesting and so unique. And you know what I really like, that a lot of the pirates had red hair, because I like a good pirate. But yeah, it was really interesting. I loved it so much. It allowed me to start a list of women I want to find more about. So off the top of my head I can't think of any, because I listened to this a while ago, and it's a lot of women I've never heard of, but also women doing things that you don't imagine to be the like rebel girls. So there's supermodels, there's race car drivers, there's scientists, and it's just about how different women can change the world in different ways, and not just being like, I invented this, or she did an amazing painting. It's even like, she was the first one to do this, and I thought it was really good, and again rated it 5 stars. We're doing well. It's not going to carry on doing as well, because there are some I didn't like as much. So the next one I have on this list is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I read this for chance because it was to read something with a white cover, and this is a fantasy retelling of a Chinese war, I think. I don't know if it's the Chinese Civil War or something. I should do some more research on it, but it's Avatar on drugs. It's the best summary I heard of it. I went into this uncertainly. I've had this on my TBR for about a year. I've had it on my shelf since July, and I just kept putting it off for no reason. I think because it was meant to be really good, but it didn't sound like my kind of book, and that's kind of what I feel like. I enjoyed it and it was well written, but it didn't really capture my attention. And I know a lot of people talk about it as like this really heartbreaking, shocking book, but it didn't break my heart and it didn't shock me. But it was very well written. The characters were, I want to say interesting, but I seem to remember the main character annoyed me. She was just a bit frustrating. She felt like she knew it all but didn't, and kept doing these really impulsive things, which I think makes her interesting as a character, but she was just annoying, which I suppose leads to that they don't have to be right or they don't have to be likeable to be good. But I don't know, it was interesting, and I will definitely be reading the sequel. But half my problem, to be fair, is I listened to the audiobook to just help me get into it, and I didn't love the audiobook, and also I didn't completely pay attention, and it was quite a long audiobook. Like, it's 500 and something pages, but the writing is really small, and the next one's even longer, so I would definitely be getting that as an audiobook. But I don't know, I have rated it 4 stars technically on Goodreads. It may go down to like 3.5, 3, because I think I might just be rating it 4 stars because I feel like I should. But I don't know, it didn't blow me away, and I feel like it should have done. But I also feel like it should have done because everyone else thought it does, and that's why I was reading it. The next subject I finished was herbology, and for that it was to read a book starting with the letter M. So I have chosen Mockingjay, which is the 3rd book in the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins. I was reading this because the prequel is coming out this month, and so there was like a read-along going along. And so obviously the Hunger Games is about a group of teens that get thrown into an arena to kill each other, and this is the 3rd book, so when the rebellion has really taken root. And it's one of my favourite series. I don't think I've read it in a long time. I don't think I've watched them, or hadn't watched them until like February for a long time. And it was really interesting to get back into the world and get back into this like specific book, because I really didn't remember it that much. I thought the rebellion in this was really interesting. I thought how the rebellion was done, like the acts they did. So it wasn't all bombing places, and it was very little bombing places, and when there was them bombing of places, the rebels didn't always like it. And so I think the discussion between the rebels was interesting, that they couldn't do certain things because it made them as bad as the capital. And then I also think the capital was quite interesting, like getting to see into the world, getting to see into the like town and the city and the people. I really liked the kind of pods, which I know is meant to be like the arena but in the capital. I thought that was a really clever thing, and I think the characters in this were a lot more interesting and a lot more rich. I know Finnick, everyone really loved when they originally read the book, and I did, but then rereading this I was like, this is really sad, like seeing his full character, seeing how broken he gets after the games when Annie's not around, and then the wedding, spoilers, and then other things, and oh, so sad. And then I forgot that Prim was like only 13. In my head she's like 60 because she's a nurse and saving people, and that makes it also really sad. So yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Again, I thought the romance in it, or the lack of romance in it, was quite interesting. How Katniss feels obligated to have a romance, not that she wants to, but she feels like she should. I know, is it Gail or Peter says like at the end of this we'll find out which one she can't survive without, and it's not which one she needs or which one she loves, it's just which one she needs to survive. And I think that's been her attitude towards romance for the whole thing, and I just really wished I'd tabbed it, because I did also listen as an audiobook, but it was really interesting and I enjoyed it, and I rated it 4 stars. It's not my favourite in the series, but it was a really good one. It smells like an old book. Do you know what I really miss actually? Is books being like that underneath. I know it's obviously more expensive, and I know having foiled books now is also really cool, but I do miss these kind of covers. So the next subject I finished was a history of magic, and that was to read a book with witches or wizards. So I read the next book in the Septimus Heap series, which was Quest by Angie Sage. This is the 4th book, so can't really tell you a lot about it other than the general series is about a boy called Septimus, and in this one they go on a quest. And I'm far enough into the series that probably every time I reread it when I was younger, I probably stopped about now, because I really didn't remember a lot about it, and so I'm super excited to read the next ones because I have no idea what they're about, and I just hope they're really good. the quest element in this was really interesting. It kind of invited us to learn more about the like lore of the world, why magic happens, the history, like what's happened to people in the past, why ghosts are as they are, why events happen. And it was really interesting. We didn't get as many new characters, but the characters that were interested. I will come back to my point, but what you can sort of see is like it has different things. So this is a stone that has a Q, that's probably something, but there's like a stamp here that says by F&I agree, and on the back it has like a compass, and also that's probably something, but off the top of my head I don't know what it is. But it's just, the book is relevant to a book that's being mentioned in it. So like in physics it was like an almanac thing. I think this is a book that Septimus has, which tells him all about the stuff that extraordinary wizards apprentices have to do, and that's the question stone, and that's like a stamp that's put on a map. Unless this is the map, this might be the map binder. Anyway, that's put on by the guy who fixes the map, and it's just really interesting. The details put in the cover, you just don't appreciate it, and it's so good. And then also all the little illustrations. Oh, I just love these books so much. Come on. Okay. So anyway, we don't get introduced to as many new characters in this, but the characters we get introduced to are really interesting. So we have one character called F&I agree, who I've mentioned, who is like half man, half rat, and so that's pretty unusual. We also have like characters that were small earlier coming back more in force. So we have Marcellus come back, which is great. I love Marcellus, he's super interesting. And we also have Beetle, who I knew was going to come back because he's like Septimus's best friend. And this is but anyway, so in this, Beetle becomes a much bigger character, and I thought that was really interesting because from what I remembered, there was constantly a romance, or constantly hints of a romance between Beetle and someone. I don't want to say who, but you can probably guess who if you've read it. And I was frustrated a few months ago when I was thinking about this series, because what are you trying to do? Because it didn't seem as feminist as I wanted it to be. Now, it's not that the women in it aren't powerful, because Marcia is a woman and is the like extraordinary wizard, and Jenna is a queen and it's a world of queens. But Jenna and Marcia and Sarah are like the main and only women in it, and they don't really interact much. And Jenna doesn't have a best friend, and I know the Bechdel test is rubbish, but it worried me that it couldn't even pass as basic a test as that. But then I was reading this, and the romance in this is really interesting because it is the guy who is pining after the woman the whole time, who's following her around, who like gets tongue-tied over her. And so I thought, yeah, it was just really interesting that it's the everyone saves the day, but it's the guys who are kind of driven by the romance. There's also Lucy. Lucy's quite an interesting female, but I just loved it. I rated it 4 stars because it's not my favourite in the series, but it was really, really interesting, and I love the quest, and I love all the hints it's going to set us up for the sequels. And witches, there were witches in this, and there was a witch called Bryony. I'm called Bryony, and the first mention of Bryony is in a sentence with Sam, and I like Sam, and that was really exciting, but nothing to do with the book. It made me happy. And also, I'd never seen my name in a book, but not only was it in here this month, it was also in here. 2 books with my name spelled correctly is insane. Anyway, I was disappointed that Jenna didn't like the witches, because I like the witches, but they weren't necessarily good witches. They were a bit evil. Witches. The next subject I finished was Muggle Studies, so to read a book about a Muggle, i.e. a contemporary, and for that I read The Rosie Result by Graham Simpson. This was originally meant to be my book for Care of Magical Creatures because the hardback has a beak, but this has a fish, not a seagull. I don't understand why it has either, but there we go. So this is the third book in the Rosie series. This is the third book in the series that starts with the Rosie Project, and it's about Rosie and Don's son, who is called Hudson. And he's really smart, but they've recently moved to a new school and he hates fitting in, and everyone thinks he's a bit weird, and so he's getting bullied, and it's really hard for the parents, but it's hard for Don especially because it's making him realise a lot of things about his past. Now, I thought this was a really interesting book for a discussion of autism that we don't usually get. Usually it's about how they're weird and don't fit in, but then find that person to fall in love with. But obviously because it was about the son, he couldn't do that. And it's more about him finding friends and also finding a place in the world he has. And also it's not about how saying autism diagnoses are problematic, but it offers that discussion by saying sometimes people don't want that diagnosis because it labels them and it means people judge them before they meet them, but also sometimes it can be helpful because they can get the help and the support. So I thought it was really interesting. I really liked the family relationships and the friendships, and it was just cute and quick and easy to read, and I definitely enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars. The penultimate subject I finished was potions, and I finished this actually in the basically Brit 24-hour readathon. I think that was the readathon. It was a 24-hour readathon, and I finished the Rosie Result and this one in the day. I'd already started the Rosie Result, but I was like, haven't read a lot, I'll finish Breakfast at Tiffany's, or I will just read Breakfast at Tiffany's, because the prompt required you to read a book under 150 pages, and therefore I thought something as short as this would work. So my book for it was Breakfast at Tiffany by Truman Capote. It actually ended up being a lot shorter than I thought, like less than 100 pages long, I think. And throwing it out there, I didn't, I was going to say I didn't like it, but I didn't hate it. I didn't like it. I didn't dislike it. I didn't feel anything towards it. I'm hesitant to give it a rating, but as a rating I'm giving it 3 stars because it was just fine. It was because it was so short and because I was trying to rush through reading it, I just didn't feel anything towards it. I didn't know anything about it going in. I honestly thought it was going to be about 2 people falling in love over breakfast, and the plot that did happen was interesting, but it was over and done with really quickly. The characters weren't anything special. Can't remember what the narrator's called, to be fair. I don't think we get his name often, but Holly, is she called Holly? Yeah, didn't stand out to me. Didn't particularly like her. She was a little bit spoiled, but I think that might be part of her character. Felt very sorry for the cat, but kind of that's all I feel. I'm like glad I've read it. Don't know, I watched the film. I feel like I'd be more interested in the film than the book, but I've tipped it off, and that's one less off my physical TBR. The last book I read was For Transfiguration, which was to read a book with shapeshifting. So for that I read Soul of the Sword by Julie Kagawa. This is the sequel to Shadow of the Fox, which I read in February, I think, and I didn't know what that one was about, but I knew I had to read it because I accidentally got Soul of the Sword off NetGalley thinking it was the first one in the series, and it wasn't, so I had to read the first one. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars, and I rated this one like 3.5, 4, so probably 3.5, because I liked it, just not as much as the first one. It kind of was a lot slower. Not a lot happened. I mean, nothing really happened until the second half. And the main bad guy, or the guy who is meant to be the bad guy, who possibly wasn't the only bad guy, there are lots of bad guys, but one of the bad guys, the, what's he called, the demon, Hikamono. The demon who was in the sword isn't as bad, honestly, as he was made out to be. He kind of felt bad in that way where he just kills lots of people really quickly, so didn't really do anything convincing as a bad guy, which is a shame because it was an interesting book, and I still think it was an interesting book, but it just wasn't as interesting as it could have been. I enjoyed the like growing family, kind of found family friendships in this one between all the characters that banded together out of necessity in the first one, staying together in this one. I thought it was really interesting. I will read the sequel when it comes out because I am interested in seeing how it concludes. But yeah, I didn't hate it. I just wasn't as blown away. Yumiko's naivety had kind of worn thin. I was a bit done with it because like there were two characters that were very obviously gay and everyone could see it and everyone was talking about it. She's like, what's going on? Why are we talking about this? It was there. We didn't need the drama of her not knowing. But then again, her character's magic was a lot more interesting in this one. It had obviously been developed, and yeah, she was interesting. I was glad to see how her magic had evolved and how it was included in the final battle, and yeah, I'm interested to see how the general book series will conclude. So I was also partway through Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for Care of Magical Creatures, but I could have finished it, but it kind of got to the last 2 days of April and I had 4 books to finish that were all 50% of the way through, and I think I only finished How Hard Can Love Be within the month, but I started my reading 2 days late, so I included it, but I still haven't finished Harry Potter, so I haven't included it now. But yeah, if you can think of any other careers that would be better for me, let me know. I will go back through it later and see. So those were all the books I read in April, bar one. I rated them all quite well, but wasn't blown away by a lot of them. This is going so wrong. I was trying to show them that. Let me know if you have read and enjoyed any of these books yourself in the past, if you are looking forward to reading any of them. If you have a better career for me, if you joined in. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!